I'll be honest, sometimes it scares me to talk about it.
Be prepared for destruction of biblical proportions, for this is the coming of a new God.
There were all these crimes that were happening. The Coke plant in Fort Myers burned down. There were some high school kids that were going to get in trouble from one of their teachers, and they decided instead of letting that happen, that they were going to get to him first and murder him.
A spring night and a knock at the door that would haunt this area for 30 years.
2 shots just fired near Park Meadows Drive.
My brother happens to be the one that was murdered.
I never forget what happened to Mark.
Over the years, I've seen a lot of bad things happen to people. Not a lot of people have been shot in the face with a shotgun.
God, why did you open the door?
The games have just begun, and terror shall ensue.
You see him and he looks like trouble.
It's like, man, what is going on, you know?
I apologize, I've asked for forgiveness.
You're gonna have to bleep it, but he's bull is all I can say.
I just think his time was way too short.
He was much more than just a brother.
So if you could tell him now, what would you say?
In 1996, this town lost a piece of its innocence, a knock at the door that changed everything.
On April 30th, Mark Schwebes, a beloved band director at Riverdale High School, was murdered in cold blood.
At least 18 people have been killed in today's bomb blast at the federal building in downtown Oklahoma City.
The country was still reeling from the Oklahoma City bombing just 1 year earlier, a deadly attack that shook the nation. Now, investigators wondered if someone was trying to recreate it when another bomb goes off at the historic Coca-Cola plant in the heart of Fort Myers.
At Riverdale High, the school year started with plans for a yearbook titled, "It's Amazing How Things Change." If they only knew. Inside, on page 84, a bio of the new band director, Mr. Mark Schwebes.
Only knowing him for a year, he was still one of my favorite teachers.
By the time those yearbooks were handed out, they would include this memorial to Mark Schwebes and note the date of his death, April 30th, 1996.
With 30 years of trying to process it, trying to understand something that happened.
Inside Mark's copy, condolences, confusion, and heartfelt notes written to the family after a tragedy too new, too raw for anyone to even figure out how they feel.
And we said goodbye. And, I'm glad we were able to have that conversation. In some ways, I wish that we had said more. But yet, if we had said more, would that have been because we had an understanding that that might be the last conversation? And I'm glad we didn't have that, if that makes sense.
The innocence of the 90s, this particular night on a collision course with chaos. But no one knew that when the night began.
All right, whenever you're ready, Amanda.
Talk to me about your connection to this story.
So I was a freshman in '95, and that was Mr. Schwebes' first year at Riverdale.
He had served in the Marines. He had a vision of where his life was going to go.
Just warm, receptive, polite. There's about 1,000 words I can think of, to be honest, but those are probably the strongest ones. Just reviewing the yearbook where I saw that he was a Marine, I don't even know that I knew he was a Marine. He didn't really come across, as the stereotypical Marine, and he was a heck of a guy.
He could play anything. He was so talented. He also played the trumpet, I played the trumpet, so there was that instant kind of connection.
In April 1996, good things are happening for Mark. His big brother and all his family were proud.
He was building his very first house when he got killed. He was just getting started for his long-term career for the first time.
The memory that I have of my uncle is special, and I will never forget it. And I think like folks who look at this and hear the story, the whole story, which I, who experienced it as a 7-year-old, don't even really know.
He was very caring. He cared about us and making sure we were doing okay, not just obviously with band, but in other classes, and would ask us like, hey, how's everything going? You need any help? Anything I can do to help you? So.
And I hope that people hear this too and get that sense like, oh, he was a good guy,
The phone rings, because no one had cell phones, so it woke everyone up in the house, and it was a friend of mine also in band, and she had said, hey, did you see the news? A Mark Schwebes, had been murdered, and it's very similar to Schwebes on how it should be. Saw a couple like pictures, or maybe like a picture of his place, and you see his car.
Front door was open. His vehicle was parked right in the front of the front door. Inside the house, there were holes in the wall. There was blood on the front door. Over the years, I've seen a lot of bad things happen to people. Not a lot of people have been shot in the face with a shotgun. When the medics got there, he was already deceased. They pronounced him dead.
About 5:30 in the morning, the following morning, I got a phone call, and my dad was crying. And I said, Daddy, what's wrong? What's going on? He said, it's Mark. So I said, what happened? Was he in an accident? What's going on? And my dad said, no. The sheriffs have been here, and they told us he was murdered.
I woke up to my mom screaming, not my brother. And I went in to find out what was going on.
The part of the job I hated the worst was having to tell a next of kin that somebody was dead.
Then I got a phone call from Lee County Sheriffs. Then they had some questions for me, since I was the last person they knew of that had talked to him.
I was probably here to about 3 o'clock in the morning. There was somebody living next door who heard the shots. That was it. They didn't see anything. I mean, they couldn't provide a description of nobody other than the shots and a loud muffler. They had no idea at all. Eventually, after we looked around the scene, we did go into the house. That's when we found the answering machine. We listened to the answering machine. It was the female voice.
What was the message on the answering machine?
She was sorry she couldn't make it, and she would explain later. It was just a short message.
But would it be the clue that would lead police to the killer?
I'm sure there was no second thoughts of anything about opening the door.
When they knocked on his door, he said, can I help you? Those were his final words.
As the sun rose over Riverdale High School the next morning, students learned their favorite teacher, Mark Schwebes, was dead.
Our principal, Mr. Schaefer, came on the intercom during school, announced that, that we had lost Mr. Schwebes.
It was kind of quiet because you're kind of looking around. There wasn't a lot of people there yet. And then kind of people kind of coming in, and we all were kind of standing in the parking lot together because we didn't want to go inside.
When students arrived, there was more than just shock and grief. There were detectives on campus who were working to identify the voice on Mark's answering machine.
It was the female voice. We didn't know who it was, but we did listen to it. It was taken as evidence.
Detectives wondered if that person maybe had something to do with it. And if she wasn't involved, maybe she knew something, heard something.
Eventually, it led to an interview with her. It led to an interview with her other boyfriend who was married and his wife, and so on. That led down that road.
It wasn't a sure thing, but it was a way to start the investigation.
Once we found out that he was seeing somebody, we notified the principal of Red Oil High School. We talked to him. He told us who she was.
And the teacher he was seeing told detectives she was seeing two men, Mark and someone she says she planned on leaving.
She had one Bob man she was going to dump, supposedly that night.
Which explains the answering machine message.
She was sorry she couldn't make it, and she would explain later.
Needless to say, there were questions about a woman that Mark had known. There were questions about what he had been doing, if I knew of anybody who had an issue with him, etc., to help them with their investigation.
Detectives are stuck, and the love triangle theory appears to be going nowhere.
The dump boyfriend, yes. We thought he might have been involved in it.
With alibis all around, Detective Tabor doesn't have enough to hold the dumped boyfriend.
How did you rule him out?
We contacted his wife and brought her in for an interview along with his daughter, and both of them said that he was home around 10:30 on, watching TV.
Among the students, the whispers began to move beyond memories.
There were rumors floating around.
I don't think that day, no one went to any classes. We all just stayed in there, just stayed in the band room all day with each other, talking and consoling each other and, sharing memories. I can remember very vividly that day of Derek Shields walking up to us. Derek was in the jazz band. I believe he played the keyboard. And I remember him kind of walking up to our group and saying, oh, hey, this is terrible. I'm sure they're going to figure out who did this.
The thing is, once you start bragging about it to somebody, somebody's going to come forward eventually.
And the tip that broke it came from somebody that knew them.
Yeah, they knew them, but not directly, is my understanding. I kept thinking there's a mistaken identity, there's something it's just not real.
How long till it became really real to you that your brother was gone?
Until I saw him in the casket in Homosassa.
I did go to to Mr. Schwebes' personal funeral up in Homosassa. I played Amazing Grace on his trumpet. It was my mouthpiece I took with me, but it was his trumpet that I played Amazing Grace on.
They came to me and my father and said we could go and see him. They opened his casket and yeah, then we knew that was Mark.
The door on the right is where he lived, Mark Schwebes lived. His Bronco was parked right in front of the door. The fence wasn't here then, so they ran from the car or walked up to the house and knocked on the door.
I'm sure he looked through that door and saw one of his students and was like, this is one of my students and they need my help.
911, what is your emergency? Yes, 2 shots just fired near Park Meadows Drive.
The night Mark Schwebes, a beloved Riverdale High School band director, was shot in his front doorway, no one could have imagined what investigators were about to uncover.
It is still very surreal, even 30 years later.
We received a call from a Julie Shouchard, said that she had information on the shooting. She was the on and off again girlfriend of somebody named Craig Lesh, who told her that he was there when Mark Schwebes was killed.
All this was vandalism, and it just kind of escalated into murder.
So after interviewing her, we located Craig Lesh and brought him in. At first we thought he was involved, and after talking to him, we ruled him out. But you could tell from talking to him, he was scared to death. I mean, you could see his heart was about to pound out of his chest. Turned out he was not there. He was just at the place where they came after they had shot and killed him and talked about it.
Craig Lesh was never charged in the murder, and he gave detectives names they had never heard before.
They started releasing these names, and that was the first time that you went, oh my gosh, these are students, like he was in our band class. I went to middle school with him. He was in my gym class, and you start now playing some of that back in your head.
Average Riverdale High School students is what made it so notorious.
If in school you would have said, oh, those 3 kids over there are part of this gang, you would have been like, really?
Chaos was starting to echo louder.
These self-proclaimed lords of chaos.
In the spring of 1996, Lee County detectives have their work cut out for them. The murder of Riverdale band teacher Mark Schwebes isn't the only unsolved case in then sleepy Fort Myers.
There were all these crimes that were happening. There was a church bus that was vandalized, the Tiki Hut in Buckingham. There were these exotic birds that were burned to death.
It escalated, it kept getting more violent.
I'd never heard Lords of Chaos before.
They described themselves as a militia.
Kevin Foster, who referred to as a leader or God. Peter McNaughty, he was quite the artist. He could really draw. One of them, Derek Shields, says that he should have come to the police, but he didn't have the guts to. And Christopher Black, they were the 4 main members.